applicable. Okay. Correct, all of them, whatever you said is correct. But why you want to develop that as a science? Because till that time, there was no study of administration as such. Okay. So understanding how a government functions rests on two aspects. One, what the government does, and the second is how it does it. So most of the study was related to only what the government does. That is the political part of the government. Okay. But he wanted to emphasize on the administrative part of the government. Okay. So you can understand government has two branches at least. Leave the others, legislature and judiciary. So government exactly has two branches. One is the political part, that is executive, and the other administrative part. Okay, that means government cannot function without the understanding of either of these. Okay, so he talks about the idea. We had discussed certain things. Okay, his contribution to the idea of constitutionalism. What is that? What is the idea of constitutionalism?
Limited government.
Correct. There must be government, but government must be limited. Okay. Why do we want to limit the government? So can the government become arbitrary? Because we have created it. Can it become arbitrary? In the absence of any mechanisms of accountability, it will become arbitrary. Okay. So constitutionalism, the idea or the basis of constitutionalism is what? That we have to have a government, and that government must be based on rule of law. Okay. Rule of law will restrict the role of the government. We also discussed that when we define something, the restriction is more rather than when we do not define it. So if I say do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, that means what? I am restricting you to certain things. Okay. The moment I say okay, don't do this and anything else you can do. What does it mean? It creates a scope of discretion. So Wilson also wanted to emphasize when he is saying science of administration, he also wanted to categorically understand that what will be the functions of the administration. Rather than giving discretion, he wanted to give autonomy. So there is a big difference. If you give autonomy, it's not necessarily related to discretion. Okay. Autonomy is what? There is a freedom as far as the jurisdiction is concerned. So within your jurisdiction, you have a freedom. But you cannot exercise this freedom beyond a point. So constitutionalism is visible where when he talks about the limitation on the power of the political system also as far as the influence over the administration is concerned, and the role of the administration also as far as the society is concerned. Fine. So constitutionalism is inherent to the idea of Wilson. Okay. So Wilson, okay, we also discussed certain statements like he's saying that we need to borrow. To make it a science, we need to borrow. Okay. Why do we need to borrow? Because some other countries have already given a benchmark. Certain countries have well-developed principles of professional administration. Okay, let us assume that way, that even if the colonial administration wanted to exploit, but you can imagine that how developed they were. Okay. That they eliminated the entire Mughal structure in India. It was not easy task. Mughal structure or Mughal administration was one of the biggest territorial administration in India. Okay. Aurangzeb starting from there to south. Okay. So how did they, or in span of few years, how was it possible for them to dismantle this administrative structure? Okay. There were certain flaws which were existent within the administration also, within the Mughal system also, but they were much more professional compared to them. So his logic is that even though they have used it for some other purpose, but how developed they would have been so that they could achieve what they wanted within a short span of time. So his logic comes from there that because their principles are so well developed, we need not borrow the purpose, but we'll borrow the technique. Okay. So he says, okay, let us copy or let us borrow certain things from the European system. Okay, like what? We have written also, like what? Code of conduct, regulation, control, then personnel system, remuneration, incentive system, okay, how to make them accountable, various things. So he's saying we can borrow certain things, okay, and use it in the democratic context, that is the US. Okay. But people have criticized Wilson for this, that he borrowed the principles, but those The context of the European countries was mostly monarchical in nature, exploitative in nature, okay, colonial in nature. So why did he borrow this principle into democracy? He did not have the understanding of the context of administration, but that is not true. Why? Because Wilson himself says that we will filter it through the cultural lens of the democracy. What is that cultural lens? The ecology of the democratic system or democratic political system, the ecology. Okay, so we have discussed that, okay, what are the influences on a democracy which are distinct from the influences on the administration? What are distinctive values of democracy? Populism. Okay. Rule of law to hai, populism, distinctive features. Bargaining, correct? Populism, bargaining, okay, trade-offs, there are various instability, majoritarianism, okay, various problems may emerge within the, okay, just like we have discussed the theories of public interest. So which of them would be applicable to democracy? Utilitarianism, correct? Mostly utilitarianism, yeah, but welfare states will also use justice, okay. So you see, democracies have its own problems. So he's saying once we borrow this knowledge, use the technique, we'll modify it according to the context of democracy. So he was very well aware of the contextual nature of administration, even though he wanted to universalize. Are you getting? So we get an idea that even though Wilson wanted to make a science of administration, universalize the knowledge of administration, still he was aware of the contextual differences between different political systems, and probably further if we explore it, between different societies. Okay, he did not do comparative study beyond the Western civilization. Okay, but at least we can say that he was aware of the contextual influences on the administration. इतना समझ में आया? आगे चले फिर? यहीं पे रहेंगे लेकिन आगे चलेंगे. ठीक है. So let us see the vision. Okay, why the word vision is used? Why can't we use the word Wilson's theory of Pobad? So what would have been the difference if he had given a theory than a vision?
He visualized how it should be. He did not say this is how it should be.
Okay. So did we say that Wilson was a reformist? Wilson was an idealist? We accept? Can I say Wilson was also empiricist? No. यार साइंस की बात कर रहा है बताओ. Wilson was also empiricist. Okay, why? Because first he is talking about science. Okay, so he has the influence, or he is influenced by the positivism. That is very sure. Secondly, when he is talking about, or how he is using or trying to make it a science, by comparison. So he has a methodology also for that. Okay, that through comparative evaluation we can make something as a science or modify it according to our needs. So that means he is an empirical also. Okay. Now there are two terms, let us deal with that. So Wilson, because we will start from where we ended, cultural lens पे हम लोगों ने खत्म किया था, है ना? मेरी याददाश्त जहाँ गलत हो वहाँ मुझे पॉइंट भी कर देना. So okay, let us start from there. Okay, right. Wilson's methodology of comparison. Wilson's methodology of comparison itself indicates that he had empirical underpinnings. He had empirical underpinnings. The influence of positivism is visible in his vision of science of administration. That is, likhiye, if we can have a science of politics, that is, if we can have a science of politics then why not a science of administration too? The idea behind the science was to understand now underline this word, to understand the facts of administration. Understand the facts of administration. Facts of administration and develop a universe of its knowledge. Now see, let us come to this part now. So the basic idea behind having empirical or scientific undertones or underpinnings of Wilson, okay, was the study of the facts of administration. Okay, when I'm using the word facts of administration, so facts will include what? Or facts would mean what? Verifiable, like, correct, your word is correct. Like what? What can be verified? What should be verified? Which is the factual part of the administration? Structure. We have discussed the structure. Okay, structure factual हो सकता है. क्यों? Because more or less it will be permanent. Okay, it may not be absolute, but it will be at least permanent. Okay, you may reform it later, no doubt. But the logic is that there are certain regularities of behavior. There are certain patterns of behavior. There are certain patterns of relationship. Like what? If I am saying, let us say recruitment procedure. Okay. So I say, let's say recruitment is a fact of administration. So it will indicate two things. One, that an administration cannot exist without recruitment. So it becomes a fact of administration. Okay. Secondly, there will be a technique behind that. And that technique more or less is permanent. Okay. Is fixed at least. Okay. So when we say certain things are facts, okay, so there are two things. One, it is a kind of pattern, and this pattern is based on two things: a relationship of cause and effect. If you see a person coming every day from a particular route, you observe him, let's say. Okay, you observe him every day, let's say not 1, 2, 3 days, but years and years. Okay. Now can you say that, okay, today also he is going to come through that route?
Yes.
You can say it. May not be true, or may not happen that way, but you can say it. So at least for the period which you are evaluating him, that becomes a fact of his life. Is it or not? That you come or I come through this route every day. Now it becomes a fact of his life. Even though it is not a fact like natural fact. Okay. So sun rises in the east, a fact, but it's a natural fact. We are not talking about natural facts. Okay. So there are certain regularities, there are certain patterns, okay, and these can be linked into cause and effect relationship. Okay. That is the logic of a fact, that it can be linked into a cause and effect relationship. If this happens, this will happen. Okay. So there will be certain things or certain aspects of administration which can also be linked in this way. Okay. Recruitment, supervision, control, manner of exercising power, way of designing the organization, distribution of functions, certain things what we can factualize. So he was after the study of facts. Okay. So one is cause and effect, or there is a pattern. The other is it is relatively stable or permanent. Okay. Now see, when I am saying certain thing is fact, so irrespective of the changes, outside changes, I will say that okay, it will be like this only. Even if certain changes are going on, I would say facts would remain same. Okay. That was his logic. He was looking for those things which remain permanent within the administration. Okay. And then probably he wanted to universalize it. That once we find these facts of administration, let us develop into principles, and these principles can now be universalized. That means we can safely say that these are present everywhere. Okay. Okay. But is it totally fact-based administration? No. So when we view the administration from the organizational perspective, okay, and that to the structural organizational perspective, then we say it is fact. Okay. But a major part of the administration also includes certain things known as values. Okay. What are values? You value IAS more than whatever you could have done. Importance, preference. Okay, but anything can be a fact, then everything can be a value. It is a duster, it's a fact. But you may use a mop instead of duster. You may use a wiper instead of duster. Are you getting this point? Now that is your value. What do you prefer? But now imagine, I say that duster is the best way of cleaning. Then you will use duster or the mop or a cloth, whatever. Why? Because then I will rationalize it. So how can we eliminate this value? Value is like preference. So when he says facts, what does he mean? He is talking about those or that aspects of knowledge which are highly rational. There is no if and but. There is no subjectivity. Okay. And every human being obviously will want to use or utilize the best available resource, means. So he's saying what? We'll search for these facts. These facts will be what? These will be the rational aspects of the administration. And once we find it out, then probably we can develop or understand the administration in the most scientific manner. We can develop an administration which is highly efficient in nature because it will be a rational administration. So when the values are not able to change certain things, then we can say yes, it is a fact. Your preference, your individual understanding, your individual knowledge has nothing to do with that fact. Are you getting this point? So values will dominate, no doubt, but values are preferences. Okay. Okay. These relate to relative importance, which people hold for certain things. The basis may be anything. Okay. Maybe any basis. You like something, maybe because of certain things. So everybody may have his own reasons for liking certain things. Okay. Are you getting this point? So that will become the value, the basis of me liking something or disliking something. So how I evaluate it, okay, and the basis I use for evaluation, that will become the value. Okay. But what they wanted to search certain things where your judgment or evaluation does not hold any validity. Certain things are fixed and they will be like this only and they are the best. So no question about it. Are you getting this point? So fact and value. Now see, okay, because this is a very important part in public administration. So Wilson was also concerned with the facts. He wanted to make it a science and study of or development of science of administration through the facts. Okay. But values cannot be denied. Okay, value is what? You make a good policy, you implement it, people don't like it. You make a rational policy, the best policy ever. After you implement it, you find out that people never wanted it. Okay. So values are what? Values come from the society. Socio-cultural part. What is the human and what is the social part? That influences the value or that brings the value. Okay. So if I talk about, I ask this podium that, okay, what is your view about public administration? He cannot give it. Okay. If I assume it to be a he or she, whatever. So it cannot give me this contribution. That means what? I would say, okay, there is no value. Okay. Or this particular thing has no value regarding something. Okay. So if we eliminate the human element from anything, the socio-cultural element from anything, then it becomes valueless. Okay. Or we say value free. Value free, value neutral, valueless, and it becomes a fact. So how we can eliminate the values, the subjectivity? The more and more factual we will become. More factual means what? More and more knowledge, more and more rational. We are becoming more and more or less and less values. So subjectivity will reduce when the objectivity will increase. Okay. So this debate surrounds Wilson also. Okay. That whether he had or whether he talked about the values or not. Okay. Whether he identified, okay, there are certain things which are the preferences, which are like ethical, moral aspects which have to be fulfilled, or the obligations of the society, and it should be fulfilled by the administration. So whether he is talking about purely a science of administration or he is also talking about certain values of the society which this administration must fulfill. Is he talking about any values? Now see, go back. Okay. Let us simplify. Now Wilson prefers for a science of administration. Okay. So the preference for a science of administration indicates what? That he has some value for developing a science. So that means he prefers a science of administration over maybe a non-science of administration. Are you getting? So he prefers a rational knowledge over a non-rational knowledge. Why is he preferring that? Because he might wanted to improve the administration. He might have wanted to improve the output of the administration within the society or something or something or something. Are you getting this point? So his preference for a science of administration comes from his inherent value that administration must be based on certain well-developed principles. And in this way the administration will become what? Efficient. If it becomes efficient, then obviously corruption, nepotism, favoritism, failure, all the things can be eliminated. So ultimately what he wanted to do? He wanted to increase the public interest as an outcome of a scientific administration. So a non-scientific administration and a scientific administration, if you have a choice, which will fulfill the public interest more? If you have a choice, you'll go for what? Scientific. If you are a despot or you are a autocrat or somebody who wants to centralize the power, he might not prefer a scientific administration because then he can easily manipulate the administration. So the logic is that Wilson was what? Wilson was somewhere trying to increase the net public interest. Okay. What is public interest? He might not have defined. Okay. But through his approach of developing a science of administration, he wanted to increase or benefit the society at large, ultimately. Okay. So you cannot say that Wilson did not have, or Wilson was totally a value-free, or he had a value-free approach to the study. No. He had the undercurrents of the social, cultural or whatever values, moral, ethical tones. Okay, but yes, as a methodology to develop the administration, he preferred the science or a fact-based administration than a value-based administration. But a facts-based administration serving the values of the society. Okay. So from this logic, okay, we'll explore it further, don't worry. Okay. At least the minimum aspect of this is understood. Minimum. I'm not saying the maximum. Okay. So, the fact and values both are visible in the Wilson's conception of or vision of public administration. If it is a vision, then it is more value based. If it was a theory, then it would have been more fact based, more empirical study, okay, more scientific study, and then only we develop certain theories. Okay, how we develop a theory? Where we have an assumption, a hypothesis, and we test this hypothesis. We don't prove it. Whatever hypothesis we have developed, we try to disapprove it. When we are not able to disapprove it, then we accept it is correct. Okay, that is known as principle of falsifiability. Okay, so we don't prove it. मैंने बोला ये अच्छा और मैं उसको prove करने लगूं कि अच्छा है, तो ये कैसे हो गया empirical? Is it or not? If I say something is good and I start proving it good, that means what? Already biased. It is not an empirical evaluation. So I develop a hypothesis. Okay, try to test this hypothesis for its falsifiability. If it is not proved, then I say yes, it is correct. So obviously it would have been more empirical if it was the theory, Wilson's theory of Pobet. So saying vision of Pobet means what? That there are certain moral, ethical and so many other aspects of this vision. Right. So this fact and value or this debate that what is the meaning of the science of administration? Is it totally like fact dominated study or it includes the democratic aspect and all, whatever. So this led to the famous debate which initiated in public administration by the Wilson, known as politics administration dichotomy. Okay. So this fact, it is the politics administration debate or dichotomy basically comes from the idea of the facts and the values. Okay. Now see why he wanted to study science of administration, because he felt that the administration has the dominant aspect as facts, because administration is based on techniques. It is more related to the management of resources, implementation of certain things, optimum utilization of technology, this, human resource, whatever. Okay. Use of rules, regulation, procedure. So it is more of technique. So in administration, there is a dominance of facts. So administration can be studied scientifically because it is fact based. Okay. As it is fact based, it can also be further developed into more scientific. Okay. This value. So administration, let us say, dominated by facts. More technique. We can understand that knowledge. Certain things will be in a pattern. There will be a cause and effect relationship. We will link them and we'll study them. Okay. But when he comes to, or when he talks about this dichotomy or separation of the politics from the administration, so his very idea is that the political or the politics is influenced by certain kinds of values. Okay. So if we don't separate it, okay, academically we will not have a discipline. If we don't separate it functionally, what will happen? The politics will keep influencing the administration. Huge influence of politics on administration. As it is more dominant, what will happen? It will engulf the administration. Are you understanding this? Okay. So what he is saying, because it is a democracy, the political control is high, the politics has more power, and politics is influenced by values. Values like populism, religion, cultural diversity, region, language, and so many things. But politics is about what? Vote bank. Politics is about what? Politicization of various issues, polarization of votes, polarization of majority over minority, and so many things which may not be considered to be the good virtues of politics. Okay, they are not the virtues. So politics is about what? Okay, he's saying it is basically power tactics. So they will use the power, okay, manipulate the society, do certain things, or try to exercise it just to acquire the power. So what will happen? In the process, they can influence the administration because they are powerful. They have a control over administration. Then what will happen? The administration will become politicized. If it becomes politicized, then it will not have public interest as the duty. It will have fulfilling the interest of the politician or the political party in power as the duty. So he assumes that, okay, once we separate it, or at least we intellectually separate it, what will happen? We can understand it, we can develop a knowledge regarding that. Also functionally, if we give autonomy to the administration, the influence of the political values, the politics, the social, cultural values on the administration will be minimized. If this influence is minimized, the performance will increase. Okay, this becomes the dichotomy debate. Okay, even though he never used the term. Okay, now this idea of dichotomy has various implications. Okay, how do you view this dichotomy? One, as the fact and value dichotomy. Okay, because Wilson's concept says that this is more value based, okay, and this is fact based. So we can also say that, okay, as an analogy, not necessarily being synonymous, but we are saying as an analogy, okay, we can say that politics is more about the values and administration is more about the facts. Study of certain things which are permanent, more or less technique based. Okay, society, religion, culture, those things do not influence the techniques of administration. Like you are using a computer, so the working of the computer is not affected by your religion. How you use that computer definitely may be affected by what your culture, your religion is, but the internal operation of that computer does not get influenced by that. Okay, so he assumed the administration to be that way. That administration is like a machine. It is like a technique which has its own principles, and if we develop these principles, okay, it will produce the best output, the maximum output. Now for what purpose it will be used, it depends upon the politics. So the implication of dichotomy is that the government, which we had talked about earlier, that government comprises of two parts, the executive part and the administrative part. Okay, they have separate functions, they have separate functions. They have separate values, they have separate values. Okay, they use different techniques, they use different techniques. Or we can say this is more technique based, this is less technique based. Okay, it is objective, it is subjective. Okay, now let us say, so the government makes the policy. Now which part of the government makes the policy? This part. Okay, then policy is made and it is implemented. So this part will implement, this part will make. Now the dichotomy influences that aspect. Okay, are you understanding this much? So the influence of dichotomy or manifestation of dichotomy is what? That the political part deals with the formulation of the policy or the law, whereas the administrative part deals with the implementation. Okay. Now can you imagine that what will be the content of public administration once it is developed as a subject? The study of implementation of the policy. Understanding this? Okay. So one of the biggest implication of the dichotomy was that the study of administration revolved around the understanding, the development of principles. The entire scope of public administration revolved around what? The study of the implementation of policy and not the formulation of policy. That was the biggest influence of this dichotomy. Okay. Dichotomy also resulted in certain other things. You write now. It's okay. Okay, give a subheading. Fact versus value. Okay. Being ethical is a fact or it is a value? Value. Then somebody will be ethical, somebody will not be ethical. It will be acceptable. So we are talking about ethics in governance. It is based on fact, it is based on value. If I say there is a training program which can create an ethical public administrator or ethical public servant, that training program will be factual. If I say universalize this training program and say anybody can have this training and he will become ethical, So it is a knowledge, it is a science. Okay. But yes, when I talk about being or having ethics in governance, then okay, I am obviously influenced by value. That I prefer ethical administration over non-ethical administration. Okay. Being ethical itself is like a value. Okay. Okay. Right. Fact versus value. Okay. 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 We do not have physical facts in social sciences. We do not have physical facts in social sciences. Unlike natural sciences. Okay. Social sciences study the interaction of human beings with their environment or community. That means one human being with the others, or human being or their community. So human beings with human beings or human beings with the environment. Okay. 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 But in order to make social sciences truly scientific, we have to empirically study. We have to empirically study various phenomena and identify the regularities and patterns of relationship. Regularities and patterns of relationship between different variables. In case we are able to establish a cause and effect relationship. A cause and effect relationship. A cause and effect relationship. Then it can be considered as a fact. Then it can be considered as a fact. Various social science theorists like Merton, Comte, Durkheim, they are mostly social scientists, not Pobbat theorists. Okay. And Weber have used the concept of social facts, as the basis of developing scientific knowledge in the field of social sciences. Is marriage a social fact? Is suicide a social fact? Like Durkheim, he studied suicides. Okay. Various other people. Durkheim studied suicide, religion. Okay. Merton is using a various structural functional approach. Okay. Comte was one of the pioneers of the sociology or the discipline of sociology with a positivist approach. Okay. So many people. Okay. Is marriage a fact? Sure. Oh, there are so many people who don't marry and still they are happy. Mostly. Okay. So why it is a social fact? That anybody who will be part of society or will have a social life or will have a social identity will be married or have to get married. If we develop a kind of cause and effect relationship, that being part of a society or being part of a family, you have to get married. So I can safely say, okay, marriage is a social fact. Even though there may be exceptions, it is fine. But at least 97%, 95%, 93% and even 90% people, if they accept this statement that marriage is a fact of life, okay, then we can say it is a social fact. Okay. Now that is the ground for the rejection of, or initially the rejection of the 377. क्या है section 377? The Supreme Court denying or denying the decriminalization of section 377. That is the logic Supreme Court is using. That hardly not even 1 crore people are having this inclination in India. Okay, and we have a specific kind of socio-cultural inclinings or ethics or principles. Okay, and based on that we can safely say that okay, 1 crore people does not have or does not technically contribute or it is insignificant. So it is using the logic. Okay, if it is not using a rational logic, then obviously on the basis of philosophical ideal basis it would have said no, it is wrong even if one person is affected. That is what the logic of judiciary is. Punish 10 people. Okay. So to punish one or don't punish one innocent, okay, for that if you have to leave 10 people, okay, unpunished, okay, acceptable. So what does it mean? The judiciary or justice works on the philosophical basis, highly ideological. But here's the judgment or various judgments, interstate water dispute, okay, and so many things are where the basis of judgment is what? It is basically social fact. Okay. Triple talaq, social fact. Okay. So social fact, if we discover certain social facts and we say okay, these are the patterns, these are the regularities of human conduct or human relationship or human interaction across the globe, or even for example, let us say, don't say across the globe, at least in one particular continent or in particular religion or in one particular culture. So there will be variety of social facts. Facts or social facts related to Hindu religion, social facts related to Muslim religion, social facts related to Indian society, social facts related to North India, social facts related to South India, social facts related to US. Are you getting this? So these facts may not be absolute, but they will be relatively universal. Probably their scope of influence would be less compared to the natural science, but they will be fact whatsoever in a particular context. Okay, so they brought this idea that okay, there will be certain social facts. Now these are the facts which we use here. Okay, it is not a natural fact, it is not a scientific fact, it is not a physical observation. Okay, so they brought the concept of social fact, and Weber has used it in public administration also, to develop a theory of bureaucracy or to understand the rise of capitalism in US or in number of countries, how the religion has contributed to the growth of industrialization. He has used this to study them. Okay. So if suicide is a fact, may not be a fact. But you also cannot deny seeing the numbers of suicides in India. You can say that yes, it is a fact, it is happening, okay, and it may happen. There are certain reasons for that. You can categorize those reasons and say, okay, these are the 10 top reasons or top 10 reasons. So the probability of happening a suicide, if these reasons are present, is high. It becomes a social fact now. So when the Wilson is saying fact or science of administration, obviously we cannot deny that Wilson did not understand that there were, or this science of administration would be based on social facts, not the facts, or not the natural facts. Okay. Whereas what is the value now? Let us come see. Take another paragraph. Okay. Okay. Though social facts may be different for different cultures and societies, though social facts may be different for different cultures and societies, in its own context, it would be, in its own context, it would be relatively a permanent, visible feature. On the other hand, every society and culture would have its own distinctive nature. Every society and culture would have its own distinctive nature. Which would be based on its entrenched socio-cultural beliefs, perception, faith, or worldview. Resulting in different choices and preferences. Okay. This subjective aspect which may influence the knowledge of a particular phenomena. This subjective knowledge which may influence the knowledge of a particular phenomena is called as value. Okay, where the facts can be empirically verified and tested. Values are subject to individual interpretations. values are subject to individual interpretations. Okay. Okay. As next line, as positivism what is positivism? It's clear? A logic, not just application of science, but an ideology that the knowledge whichever is developed or whatever is developed is based or should be based on facts. Anything which is not based on fact or empirical verification is not worth studying. Okay. So positivism क्या बोलता है? How does it support the idea of fact? That is purely practical. So where the positivism is what? Okay. Positivism accepts fact as the basis of all knowledge. Basis of all knowledge. Now this is a new term. Normativism. Normativism is the acceptance of values as the important component of knowledge. Why we had to describe so much? Because in the later part you will deal with this fact value throughout your public administration. So unless you understand, you cannot understand what others are saying, whatever the theorists are saying. Okay. So normativism, now that is an ideology which says that no, values are as important or values are more important than the facts. So whereas positivism influenced the early development of theories in public administration, as a counter current the normativism also came. That how can you deny the existence of subjective aspects into knowledge? For example, when we talk about God, okay, even though the study of God is obviously beyond the comprehension of the humans, okay, so we say it is metaphysical. Whatever we see, we visualize, we can study, we can control, or at least we can see. We call it as more as physical. So the God or the divine comes as metaphysical. Okay. But people have tried to prove the existence of God also. Okay. So the positivist will try to prove it. Okay. The normativist will accept that there is a God. And if there is a God, okay, obviously there is a part of the knowledge that is value. As simple as that. So if I see a tree, okay, I say, okay, I am a positivist, this is a tree, it is a fact. Okay. But a normativist will say, okay, who brought this tree? Who created this tree? Okay, why don't you go and find out? So the positivist will not look for it because there is no fact for that. It will say, no, that is not the subject of the study. Okay, I am concerned with the knowledge about tree. Okay. Maybe the origin, okay, the seed. But how the seed originated, okay, I am not concerned. Fine. But a normativist would what? He will try to say that, okay, it's okay. Let us accept that seed is an outcome or a consequence of something which we do not know or we cannot know. Okay, so try to understand a person or the normative approach or normativism is not denying that there is no rational knowledge. It is only accepting that along with a rational, empirical, factual knowledge, a major part of the knowledge is also which cannot be verified. But we have to accept. Okay. So knowledge may not be rational. Okay. Rational is something like scientific, universal. So if I say that, okay, this is the best based on what? Based on facts. So if it is best based on facts, universally it is acceptable. Okay. But if I say it is best based on what? Based on my criteria, then I would say it is not universal. Then it will become a value, even though I am saying it is best. But as it is based on my criteria or the limited criteria or the criteria of the limited number of people or out of a limited experiment, then I would say it is more value dominated and less fact dominated. Okay. So fact and value, they have a relative conflict within the public administration. Okay. Those who wanted to develop science of administration, they were all obsessed with the fact. They wanted to search for the facts. They accepted that science or administration is based on facts, so we must search for them, verify them, include them in the knowledge, and deny everything which is non-factual in nature. Okay. Now let us go back. So, what will dominate the politics? The positivism or the normativism? Normativism. Okay. What will dominate the administration? Positivism. So I can say that politics administration dichotomy is also a dichotomy of value and fact, and is also a dichotomy of normative and or normativism and positivism. Okay. So that is the logic, that this dichotomy had implications for various aspects, as a method of study, as a scope of knowledge, okay, as the domain of public administration. Okay. What all factors or variables will you study within the public administration? Are you getting? So what? It defined the discipline of PubAd. And as it came from the father of public administration, okay, it was easily accepted that yes, there are facts and we must look for these facts. Okay, now you write. Okay. Implications for, click here. Implications for the study of public administration. Give a subheading. Implications for the study of public administration. So politics administration is famous or infamous? Is it a famous debate or is it an infamous debate? Famous. Why not infamous? Creating most number of conflicts within the study of PubAd. Notorious politics administration dichotomy. Okay. 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 Right. Okay. Implied. Okay. Okay. Right. Implied within the Wilson's vision of science was the dichotomy of politics and administration. The former being normative, and the latter being positivistic. But both can be influenced, no doubt. Okay, but which is more dominant in politics is the normative aspect as a study. Okay. So what was Wilson's conception first? That should be studied. Later, obviously, it changed. Okay. Well, what is fact for you is a value for me. Okay. That is also true. But in the initial years of the development of public administration, that was not the dominant knowledge. Okay, that knowledge came later. When behavioralism comes, then that knowledge comes, not now. Okay. 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 This had implications for the study of public administration as a discipline. as a discipline. This had implications for the study of public administration as a discipline. It was considered more factual, and technique based, more factual and technique based, which must be intellectually separated. From the larger questions of values. That is politics. From the larger questions of values. That is politics. Now see, how did it impact? First understand and we'll write. Now see, administrators and politicians. So when we say administration is more fact-based, it is scientific, it is more of technique. So administrators were considered who? The people who will operate a machine, nothing else. The scope of study of administration is limited to the study of that technique or the development of some new techniques. And the people who will be part of that system, they will be more or less what? Motor mechanics, nothing else. Drivers who just know how to operate the machine. So the administrators and the politicians, now if you compare. So as a consequence of dichotomy, okay, the scope of administration also got confined to the study of the techniques of administration, and how this dichotomy influenced the image or the status of the public administrator. Who was he now? Was he an active player in the society? No. He was only operating the machine. So he was like an operator who had learned certain things, okay, and as those things are more or less permanent and constant, so he has to use what? A kind of limited knowledge and operate the machine. So the dichotomy took away the social role of the public administrator. Are you understanding this? Okay, the moment you don't understand, kindly tell me. Okay, the moment I say that you are nobody, you are just a person who will be recruited into a system, everything has already been created, okay, technique is already developed, okay, we have defined it, okay, now you just enter the system, operate the machine, something like turnkey projects you must have heard of, okay, so you go and turnkey, finish it, come back home. So as a consequence of the dichotomy, obviously the responsibility for the democracy did not rest on the administrator. The responsibility for the democracy shifted purely to the political class or the political system. That they are the ones who are going to preserve and protect the values of democracy. They are the ones who are going to decide what is going to happen. They are the ones who preserve and protect the values of the society, and it is not the administrator. Have you understood this? Okay, because it is not a very simple aspect. So, as a consequence of dichotomy, the administrator's role, okay, his responsibilities, okay, you can say his entire image, okay, got transformed into simply an operator of the machine known as the administration. Now you tell me, just now you said we want to serve the people, we want to serve the society, so we want to enter the administration. You are not serving, it is the administration which is serving. You as an administrator, what are you doing? Nothing, it is already designed, you are just going and sitting there. No, but that is an assumption. Okay, so dichotomy assumed that people who will enter into that system, okay, they will be just like operators, but it is not true. We are all humans, so we will carry our own value system, we will carry our own ethics and morality, okay, but the system does not allow you to use it. Okay, now that is the scope of study of PubAd. So what it is doing, it is continuously studying that how this design can be improved to that extent that one day it becomes a fact, or one day it becomes like a natural fact that this is the administration, this is the best way to behave, this is the best way to act, this is the best way to make a decision, this is the best law, this is the best rule, this is once we do it. Okay, it is immaterial who occupies the system. Who occupies a position, it doesn't matter. What is your academic knowledge, what is your background, what is your socio-cultural background, it has no influence whatsoever in your decision making. Okay, that is the logic of the study of public administration. Okay. But that was only the initial phase. Obviously later people have discarded this approach. But you see, what did dichotomy do? It minimized the scope of the study of public. Okay. We had talked about a narrow perspective and a broader perspective. Which one was emphasized by the dichotomy? The narrow perspective. Okay. So all the theorists or all the people who accepted this vision of Wilson, okay, or the dichotomy of the Wilson, they tried to now form or develop the theories based on this logic. So from 1887 to 1940s, you will see all the theories which developed, the principles which they developed, okay, they were mostly based on what? The study of the facts of administration, assuming that humans who enter the administration do not have any influence. Neither they have a role, neither they have an influence, because everything is pre-decided. And that is what we have to study and develop. That how we can rationalize this pre-decided means. So to make it rational, everybody came, tried to rationalize. More rational. So that it becomes something like an ideal machine. Okay. Delivering our needs. Okay. As and when we require, nothing else. So administrators were robbed of their social role, of their democratic role. Okay. Or of their creativity, of their innovation, okay, of their individual intelligence or individual, you can say, skill. Okay, why? Because the system was designed in such a way that it doesn't matter who enters, everybody can use the system. Procedure is already defined. Are you understanding this part? Now you write. Okay, we have written the word worldview. What is a worldview? So when we have worldviews, what do we mean? How our internal understanding has simplified our external environment. Okay. So how we see things, okay, and how, to what extent we have simplified those things based on our perceptions. For some, something is good, and for some, something is bad. Okay. For some, same thing is good and same thing is bad. Various situations. Okay. So it is what? Simplification of the outside world, or what the perception of the outside world that we have. Okay. We simplify it and we fix it more or less. Okay. That is why we fix it, because it is simplified. So if we will go for evaluation of everything, then it will be very complicated. Okay. So we have certain notions well developed, and we accepted that, okay, yes, this is the reality. ये खराब है, ये अच्छा है. नवरात्रि में नॉनवेज नहीं खाना है. ठीक है. जैसे ही खत्म हो, अगले दिन तुरंत जो है पहुंच जाना. That means what? You are not doing it out of voluntary will. You are doing it out of compulsion. Okay. तो वर्ल्ड व्यू भी ऐसे होते हैं, वो सिंप्लीफाई हो जाते हैं, वो रियलिटी नहीं होते हैं, बट दैट इज अ सिंप्लीफिकेशन ऑफ द रियलिटी. ओके. सो डायकॉटमी, राइट. ओके. द डायकॉटमी कैन ऑल्सो बी, फ्रॉम वेयर यू आर राइटिंग, यू कंटिन्यू फ्रॉम द डायकॉटमी कैन ऑल्सो बी viewed as a value fact dichotomy. Which had immense influence on the evolution of public administration from 1880s till 1940s, or 1880 to 1940s, you can write 1880 to 1940s. The administration was considered as a machine which caters to the political will, as a machine which caters to the political will in order to fulfill predefined goals. Consequently, administrators are just the operators of this machine. Irrespective of, next line देखिए, irrespective of their individual socio-cultural backgrounds, the machine operates only according to the specific standards. That is, public administrators do not have influence over administration. Do not have an influence over administration. So the dichotomy considered administrators as neutral agents. Implementing the techniques of administration. It robbed them of, you can underline this as a question, it robbed them of their social and democratic role. Robbed them of their social and democratic role. Now see, Wilson started with his idea that we want to separate, or we have to separate the administration because it is distinct from the politics, so that the administration can perform well. Okay. So that administration can perform well. Okay, what does this mean now? Earlier, he wanted less political interference, probably more of intervention. We have written this word. Less interference, more intervention. Now today what is happening when he talks about the dichotomy? What is the consequence? Again the administrators become what? An instruments in the hands of who? The politicians. So in the pursuit of creating the autonomy for the administration or developing administration autonomous, taking it away from the politics, what he did? Well, he ultimately politicized it. Okay. Politicized it. Because the political control did not diminish. So what? His impact has been what? Only academic and not real. In reality, can you take away the administration? Because you are saying administration is an instrument. It is a machine. It is only a means. Who is going to use this means? The political system. So even if you talk about autonomy of the administration, you do not or you don't end up reducing the control of the political system on the administration. Elements of politicization may be reduced, but the political control will not reduce. So don't conceive a dichotomy in that sense that administrators and politicians will never interact. Administrators and politicians will never meet or they will not influence each other. But here what is happening? The administration will not be able to influence the politics. The politics will influence the administration. Okay. But what Wilson wanted was that, okay, if we develop certain principles of public administration, then eventually it will become more professional. As it becomes more professional, okay, the influence or the tendency of the political system to influence it will reduce. Because it will have well-developed principles, so it knows how to operate itself. But ultimately, who is going to decide the end? It is the political system. So he uses a term, making the business of administration, okay, less unbusiness-like. He is using a term. Okay. That why do we need to have a professional administration, even though the political control or the control of or the power of the political system does not diminish. Okay. But what happens? The professionalization of the administration increases. Okay. Are you understanding this logic? Because Wilson never talked about political reform, at least in his essay. He is not talking about political reform, that reform the politicians, why they are corrupt, why they want to influence the administration. So he is not talking about that electoral reform or party system reform or multi-party reforms, whatever. Okay. In the politics, he is only talking about the reform in the administration or separation of administration. Though the mistake is where? Mistake is in the politics and not the administration. Are you understanding? Why you wanted to separate? Because the mistake lies in the politics and not in the administration. So you should have reformed the politics. Why you wanted to reform the administration or separate the administration? But he felt it is very difficult to change the values or at least even academically say that okay, values of politics must be this and not this. Impossible. So politics or the field of politics is what? It is a field of values. A field of administration may be a field of facts. So he's saying make the administration, okay, or the business of administration less unbusiness-like. Make it more professional. So unbusiness-like means, what is a business-like? No, making something less unbusiness-like means making it business-like, no? So what is business-like? Efficient, correct? Okay. How business operates? What is the fundamental principle of business? Profit or demand supply? Perfect competition. Okay. The fundamental business is what? Business works on the optimization. Okay, not necessarily just the profit. We are saying optimization. Why? Because business comes with a kind of direct responsibility. It is yours, direct. Entrepreneurial means what? That somebody who takes a risk and also the responsibility of that risk. So the field of business means here that the Wilson was more concerned with the efficiency, no doubt, productivity, profit, and so many things. Okay, but what he wanted the professionalization, standards. He's saying an administrator is more concerned with those aspects which a politician will never be. So what is the purpose of the administration? To identify that what can be the reasons for failure, what can be the limitations of the implementation, or how to minimize the waste, how to minimize the use of resource, how to optimize the cost, time, and everything. That is the role of the administrator. So he's saying it should be more business-like, more direct responsibility, more concerned with the cost, more concerned with the benefit, more concerned with the productivity, more concerned with the satisfaction of who? The people. So you're a client, a businessman or a business must satisfy the client, and then only the business will prosper. So logically he is talking about what? That customer satisfaction must also be there. And who is the customer here? It is a citizen. So the administrators must perceive the citizens to be their customer, and then they should deliver it, so that the utility of their system remains. Otherwise, they will be out of business. So he's saying professionalization is the key. And why professionalization? We will have to standardize things. Once we standardize, then we can evaluate the performance. Okay. Then we can minimize the failure, minimize the wastage, and something. So the term or use of the term business, okay, comes from the certain aspects of Wilson or the idea of Wilson. He's saying there is no defined standardization or there is no defined scope of the work of the administrator. Functions are not distributed based on some logical grounds. There has been emergence of, or there is no emergence of professional standards within the administration. How will you evaluate whether you are performing or not? How will you evaluate you are closer to the success or not? So saying the implementation standards must develop, just like the business has. So there is a target has to be met. Okay. So how targets are identified? Based on some quantitative data, quantitative information. So saying the administration must what? It must be working like a business. Whereas politicians or political system may work on the notions of welfare, politics, values, whatever. Okay. So he's saying it must be business, free from these things, profit motive, resource, productivity, efficiency. That must be the concern of the administrator, not the concern of what politics is doing, what the political party feels, what is the ideology, what is this, what is this, what is this. Okay. So later we will study Weber's bureaucracy. Okay. So in the Weberian bureaucracy, that is a very dominant theory of in public administration. Every question in the PubEd obviously belongs to that domain only. Okay. So Weber is saying that there must be, or he tries to develop a system of bureaucracy, or which he calls as bureaucracy, the most rational structure. So he is using a term there, neutral or neutrality. Okay. That neutrality or neutral, here obviously we have used the word neutral. So here neutral is what? The one who is not affected by various type of values. Okay. One who is not affected by subjective considerations. Okay. मेरा भाई है, okay. मेरा religion है, मेरा community है. He is not affected by those things. Okay. He is also not affected by the ideology. Okay. BJP है, UPA है, who is in power? Okay, I don't have anything. So you see, the Wilson or the word Wilson is using business type, professional. Okay, that professional is actually, or it simplifies, evolves into the neutral or neutrality word used by the Weber. Same logic is used by the Wilson, but you see, nobody tried to imply that Wilson was talking about bureaucrats or a public servant who is free from these values. That was the purpose of the dichotomy, to develop a structure which is protected from this entrenched, from the vested interests, protected, so that it can serve the society equally, irrespective of what is your religion, what is your caste, what is your customer. How do you serve the customers? But you don't ask customers what is your caste, what is your community, what is. Okay, it is basically what? The service that is more important. So the customer is treated as like somebody, okay, who must be catered to irrespective of what is his background. Doesn't matter to you. Okay. So services are created in that manner and served to the people irrespective of their background, let's say racial discrimination, whatever may be the basis at that time. Okay. So he is assuming that the administrators must serve them neutrally, irrespective of who they are. He must not be influenced by those values or ideology. Now the same logic after almost 30 years or 40 years, 1920, Weber brings the same logic and it became the dominant system, okay, or dominant theory in the public administration, and neutrality became the dominant value. The most important principle guiding the administrators. So Wilson in 1880s itself identified, though he is not using the term, neutrality. Okay. So you kindly keep that in mind when we read Weber, we will link it. That how Wilson was also the supporter of neutrality or a neutral public servant. Finally Weber conceives that idea, okay, makes it more elaborate and comprehensive, okay, delivers it as a theory of bureaucracy, which was universally acceptable. Okay. So Wilson had that idea then itself. Okay. And that is why I say he was visionary. Because he never talked about, he never gave concrete guidelines. He never gave operational procedures. Okay. He never gave some factual techniques. He only identified the certain principles on which the evolution of public administration as a discipline will take place. Now you write. No, we are, it's increased. Obviously, when we are saying dichotomy resulted in what? An administration which does not have control over its own system. Because it is like technique based. Okay, it is totally methodical in nature. So when you enter the system, okay, how can you influence the system? You cannot. Because there is a role for you, okay, and there is a jurisdiction for you. So you play it. Okay. Once you do it, there is nothing remain, or there is nothing that you can do further. So what does it mean? That you are ultimately at the will of the political system. Okay. So even though dichotomy tried to or developed on the basis of the autonomy for the public servants, for the public administration system, ultimately what it did, it ultimately shifted the power base to the political system. Because you could not exercise the power, okay, it is highly restricted for you. So who is the one who is having more discretion? It is the political system. When you compare administration from politics, who has more discretion? The political system. And after the dichotomy, whose discretion is restricted? The administrators. Are you getting this point? So it is like a criticism. Okay, we are using just a theoretical argument. Okay, it may not be a factual reality, but it is a theoretical argument that as the administrators become more and more, our administration becomes more and more defined. Okay, the will of the political system or the politician becomes more and more broad. Okay. Are you getting this point? So when we do not say politicization, we are saying the political control did not reduce. Okay. You are more like an instrument today. Okay. He may not be able to influence you individually now. Okay. Because Wilson had seen the context of spoil system. And he was talking about an autonomous administration because of that. So it is true. Political interference will not be there. Okay. But political control over the administration will not reduce. Okay. So in that regard, autonomy is acceptable. Dichotomy has led to more professional administration, but it no way reduced the power of the political system. Okay, as far as the decision or deciding the goals of the administration is concerned. Later, when the new public administration comes, then then it increases the role of the administrator. Okay, so today also when we view the public servant, we are simply viewing that you have to go there, follow the policy, implement it, and 35 years after that you come back. Okay, that is what your role is. Okay, you are not the one who are going to decide what will be the value of the system. Why this policy and why not you are not the one going to decide. Okay. You may be only a cog in the wheel, you are just part of that system. No. Okay, right. Okay. Okay. The dichotomy, right. The dichotomy did not diminish the dichotomy did not diminish the control of politics over administration. But yes, eliminated the arbitrariness. As the public administration, or PA, just write PA, public administration was now considered as a professional field based on well-developed principles. So as consequence of dichotomy, it was accepted that it is a professional field. Okay. Wilson's statement indicates his preference for the field of public administration as a field of business. Field of public administration as a field of business, comma, as he says, within quotes, you write, as he says, making the business of administration less unbusiness like. Making the business of administration less unbusiness like. That is public administration should be a body of professionals, working on the fundamental canons of business. What is a canon? Fundamental canons of business. What is a canon? They are more like canons of propriety. They are not like rules. Okay, but they are like principles which are more or less developed as an outcome of ethical and moral aspect. Okay. Generally used with the religious, in the religious sense. Okay. So there are certain do's and don'ts which are inherent within the religious principle, that we say the canons of propriety. It is not coming from a law, neither from some coercive or statutory framework. it is more or less coming voluntary, okay, or imposed as a convention. Okay. So fundamental canons of business. Okay. Obviously he is not saying that make a law and make the administrator as businessman. That is not his idea. But he is saying that the moral and the ethical or the guiding principles of the administration must be business, okay, and not the politics. So the values of administration or the perceptions, beliefs, the attitude that the administrator must have must come from the business and not from the politics. That is why he also wanted to intellectually, okay, and spiritually separate the public administration from the politics. Okay, in spirit, not talking about God, but in spirit. Who is an administrator? In spirit he is a businessman, he is not a politician. Are you understanding this? You are confused that, okay, I am a businessman or a administrator. So why should I leave it and again prepare for the exam? Okay. Now that is not the logic. He is saying that who is an administrator? In spirit, okay, or the guiding values of the administrator must be business. Okay. He must be professional, must take up responsibility, must know where the mistake is. Okay, then only he is like a businessman. Okay, look here. Fundamental canons of business, that is number 1. Based on professional standards. Profit and productivity. Profit and productivity. Economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. 3 E's. Economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. Treating citizens as clients. Okay. Who is a client? Customer is one who pays and buys a product. A client is one for whom you design a product. So you customize the product for a client, not for the customers. The customers will come and buy a general product based according to the specifications and their requirement. Okay. But here the entrepreneur or the business develops the product according to the requirement of the client. Okay. So he's saying treating citizens as client, though he's not treating it or using this term explicitly, okay, but he's trying to convey it, that make it more business-like. Means what? That you start treating citizens as client. Okay, what does this mean? Who is having more or who is gaining power here? The citizen or the administration? The citizen. Okay, though we can criticize it. Because today you are citizen, so the state has obligation and also you have the power to question the government. But tomorrow if you become customer, then you can only question the government for the service you have paid. So today a vast population or huge population is not paying the income tax, but they still have the power to question the government because they are citizens. The day they become customer, okay, that only those people can use this road, just like the toll roads are there. Okay, you must have seen the toll roads, so you can pay and use it. So automatically, once you become a customer, no doubt your right or the client, your right over a particular service becomes more dominant. Okay, question it. Okay, you can modify it. The responsibility of the service provider increases. But what happens? Your right as a citizen diminishes. So variety of sections, the moment we treat citizen as customer, variety of people will be eliminated out of that benefit. Okay, that may be a criticism of the Wilson. But what he means here is that yes, once we are more business-like, okay, we are more responsible for our services. We will standardize the services so that there is no complaint. We will try to satisfy the needs of the people. Okay. We will not treat them as, or will not take them as for granted. It's okay. We are the only ones who are providing. So whatever we do, ultimately they have to come to us only. So you have to make a license, or you have to get a license made. Ultimately you have to go to the RTO, whatever he does. So what is the nature of the public administration, or under the spoil system, what would have been the nature of the administration? That okay, it doesn't matter, whatever service we provide, the people have to ultimately take that service. Today also more or less it is like that once you are using these roads. Okay. So whatever the service the government is providing, you have to accept it. You don't have an option. You have an option to use another road, that is fine. But then that road would be also similar to that. Okay. So here the competition is about which is worse. It's not about which is good. So generally in government what happens? The competition is about from bad to worse to worse to worse something. Okay, see, Mulayam Singh, Mayawati, Akhilesh, Yogi, all are competing for what? कौन कितना खराब हो सकता है? So logic is professional benchmarks नहीं. Okay. So he is saying that okay, how will you deliver the service once you don't know what is the standard? If you don't know the standard, obviously you have to define the standard. Who will define the standard? The people. That we want this type of road, we want this type of service, we want this quality of service. So they will define. When they will define, when they will participate. So you have a customer feedback form or whatever, there are various ways by which you can take the feedback. So logically he is trying to say what? That there must be improvement in the net service delivery of the administration. Okay, you can just elaborate this point. Okay. Treating citizens as client. Improving the standards of service delivery. Improving the standards of service delivery as per the requirements of the citizens/clients. As per the requirements of the citizens/clients. Basically clients here. Okay. So as a business, you will have some professional standards. Profit and productivity may be one of the motives. 3 E's are there. Treating the citizen as customer. Okay. So ultimately what? You will become more and more efficient. Okay. 5th point likhiye. Increasing responsibility for the implementation. Now once the political interference is eliminated, administration becomes more professional. So who can be held responsible? The administration. So what happens when you do this, or when the dichotomy will take place, we can also at least identify that okay, whose failure is it? If there is excessive politicization, what happens? It is unclear as to whose responsibility is this. So the dichotomy, okay, or considering the administration as business also increases the overall responsibility of the business or the administration towards its business. And what is the business? The implementation. Right. So what you do? You create a clear-cut demarcation between the functions of the politics and the administration, and within the administration the functions of various departments. Okay. Now you see what will be the structure of the administration if we treat the administration as business. So business is conducted on facts. If you have the resource, okay, then only you can talk about investment, otherwise impossible. Whereas government makes a plan, okay, without having a resource. Is it not? Generally government what? More idealisms, philosophical. So what will be the structure of this organization? If I say administration is business-like, what will be its structure? You will eliminate number of superfluous departments. You will integrate variety of departments together who will have some common functions. You will standardize the functions, eliminate more or less obsolete kind of functions. So what you will do? You will reform. You will reform or not? So inherent to the idea of business or making it more business-like is the idea of reforming the structure of the administration on the lines of business. Understanding? So reforming the structure how? Instead of having huge administration, okay, which is not based on any logic or criteria of evaluation, okay, we must have a more rational, well-defined administrative system. So eliminating various departments which may be redundant, which may not be needed now. So he's also indicating towards the structure of the administration, that okay, what will be the structure of administration? It will be more business-like. It will be based on the economy, cost, okay, requirement, utility, need for a particular society. Okay, if not, eliminate the structure. Okay. Right. Sixth point लिखिए, फिफ्थ लिख दिया, सिक्स्थ उसके नीचे लिखिए, देखिए, reference to business also indicates the need for the structural reforms in the administration. Structural reforms in the administration. Like eliminating redundant departments and functions. Eliminating redundant department and functions, comma. Converging various functions which are similar in nature. Comma. Promoting financial propriety and financial propriety and accounting standards. Now many people have analyzed Wilson in their various books, okay, but there has been one analysis by a bureaucrat, okay. Now he's giving a very good, a finer micro level understanding. He's saying when you talk about business, okay, obviously the budgetary process becomes very important. Okay, so we may say efficiency, productivity, it is fine. But how? See the traditional government budgeting. What is the traditional government budgeting? Okay, there is no clear cut or there is no rational criteria of expenditure, investment or input and output. Revenue collection, okay. The government is not concerned with those things. It makes a plan, okay, does not have the resources or the sources of the revenues, okay. So what happens? Most of the budgeting or the budgetary allocation within the government suffers from the deficits. So when he's talking about business, he's also referring to the budgetary process, okay. How the administration contributes to that budgetary process? It is the administration which actually accounts, or you can say identifies the need for the money. Okay. So if the administrators are business oriented or if the administration is business oriented, then what will happen? The overall deficit of the government will reduce over the time because they will optimize, reduce the cost, delays, time, they will be conscious of these things. So ultimately the budgetary process will improve or degrade? It will improve. As the budgetary process improves, what will happen? Ultimately the taxation structure, the revenue base, accounting models, everything will be improved. Who will be benefited from this? The public at large. So if you get the quality for your revenue, the quality for your, the taxation, the quality service for the tax you pay, ultimately you will be happy. Okay, that is what his logic is, business style. Justify your cost. You must be able to justify as an administrator that why are you being paid? Why should you have such an elaborate structure? Why should there be a department? Why should there be a public servant? Why should he have this much privileges, perks, benefits? Why? So he's talking about that logic. That ultimately the administration must justify its cost. And that can only be done when the public satisfaction increases and the public expenditure reduces. Are you getting this point? So the field of business is not just business as an idea talking about productivity and efficiency. Okay, he is talking about the reforms which will take place in the entire administrative structure. Okay, whether it is budgetary process, whether it is accounting, okay, whether it is evaluation of expenditures, salaries, incentives, the entire structure of the administration. So it will have numerous influences on them. इतना समझ में आया भी? ठीक है, क्वेश्चन लिखो एक. Okay. Values. Yeah, obviously values are there. Why not? We are saying every time public interest, public interest, public interest. So business is not devoid of values. So inherent है business में तो values हैं, ठीक है. But we use the term ethical business. ठीक है. So why ethical business comes? Because the business was also used as a means for exploitation, manipulation, misuse. So we talk about business ethics today. Okay, that there are certain do's and don'ts of the businesses also. So business per se is not exploitative if it is perfect. If there is a perfect competition, perfect demand and supply, then it is fine. But it is not true. It does not happen. Okay, so business principle also has its own limitation. When he is talking about principles of business, he is basically referring to a kind of, you can say, the ideal business principles, an ideal market condition. Okay, perfect competition, information between the customer and the business is shared properly. So if you want to imply Wilson, then various implications can be drawn, but not now, we will do it later. Okay. But who will be a good customer? Who knows everything about the product? Okay, how will you know about the product? Unless there is a transparency and openness in the system. So you try to interpret Wilson. That is why we say it was a vision, okay, not a theory. Okay, write a question. Okay. The field of administration must be the field of, within quotes you write, the field of administration must be protected from the hurry and strife. The field of administration protected from the hurry and strife of politics. Field of administration must be protected from the hurry and strife of politics. Statement of Wilson. Okay. What is the meaning? Whatever we have discussed, that is the meaning. So can you tell me in points? Right? What is hurry of politics? Hurry is the non-rational criteria, non-factual evaluation. Does not go for a logical, empirical analysis of the issues. So what is the political ambition? What is the political nature? It is basically of pacification. The politics tries to pacify, nothing else. So hurry obviously relates to those values of politics which are more or less related to, or which want what? The instant solution to things. They do not like or they do not want a complete solution. They only want a time bound. Okay. Solution is required, that's it. Immediately what is best, not necessarily best, what is satisfying the particular problem, okay, deliver it. Hurry and strife means what? The politicians. What is the real nature, what is the real purpose of a politician? Political power. Okay. Whatever be the cost means obviously because there is no rational evaluation. Okay. So hurry and strife, word which he is using, he is trying to say that politics has inherently a nature of using or misusing the power. Okay. It does it for whether its own interest or technically for a group interest or for a party interest or something, but it is never related to a rational public interest. Everything must be protected from the party politics. Okay. From regionalism. Okay, that is what the politics do. Okay. It uses the social crevices for polarization of votes, more concerned with means more concerned with this, then this means what? That he is the propagator of the ideals, but he never understands the reality. So his ideals are based on non-realistic evaluation of the situation. More concerned with making than implementation. That means he does not have any whatsoever any perception or evaluation of the implementation. What is going to happen? So politicians, what? They basically propagate values in the society. This is good, this is bad, this must be done, this should not be done. But they do not work on the reality, or they do not work on based on the real facts of the society, real facts of the situation. They never use it. Okay, in fact they ignore it. Okay, whereas for the administrator, it is only the reality. Okay. Okay. Also known as the idealism versus realism. Okay. Idealism versus realism. Realism is more related to the existent. Idealism is more related to what should. Okay. Let's say I write two words. What ought to be. What ought to be. This should happen. It should be like this. When you have those words in the sentence, that smacks of idealism. Okay, whereas when you have what is, this is the fact, more realistic, then it becomes realism. That means what? ये ज़्यादा value based है, ये ज़्यादा fact based. Okay. Oh, obviously. No, positive. Politics may have both the positive and negative aspects, but politics or the core values of the politics, they will differ from the core values of the administration, whether they are good or bad. Okay. But hurry and strife of politics is what? There are the dominant values of the politics will have no congruence with the dominant values of the administration. Okay. Even though the purpose of the administration is defined by the politics. But the way it is to be achieved is not the way of the politics. Okay. So it is fine. Okay. So the field of administration must be protected. Okay. So why so much of idealism in this statement? So Wilson, what he degrades, he downgrades the study of political science when compared to the administration. He does not consider political science or the politics to be worth studying, or already so much of political science had been studied. Okay, that would have been the reason. So he's talking about we have well developed principles, theoretical knowledge regarding the political science, that is the politics and its institutions. But we do not have developed knowledge regarding administration. He is not saying that the study of political science is not required. Okay. So don't consider that Wilson, because he was basically a politician, academician and politician both. Okay. So he knew that what are the compulsions of the politics. Based on that, he wanted to develop the study of administration. Okay, that knowing these compulsions, let us isolate. Okay, but can we isolate in reality? No. So what is the criticism of Wilson? Now you write. No. How can you criticize? We'll use him wherever is required. Okay. Now dichotomy is basically attributed to Wilson, but it is not the idea of the Wilson. Okay, in 1900, you see how dichotomy was carried forward. Okay, 1900, the person Frank Goodenough. Okay, Goodenough wrote a book, Politics and Administration. So politics and administration, in this politics and administration, he took further the idea of the Wilson. In fact, there is no reference or there is no fact which says or evidence which says that Goodenough must have studied the Wilson's essay. He was working independently, but when we see or when we study them together, then we say that he carries forward the idea of Wilson. They must or they might have independently contributed. Okay. But Wilson was chronologically, obviously, he preceded Goodenough. Okay. So Goodenough, when he wrote the Politics and Administration, what he did, he concretized the idea of dichotomy. Now see, when we refer to Wilson, okay, Wilson was related more to the vision, whereas Goodenough provided the basis of the separation. Wilson only perceived that there must be separation, there can be or there should be a dichotomy so that we can further study and develop the field of public administration. But what Goodenough does, he concretizes it. He develops the basis, the principles on which we can separate the administration from the politics. Are you getting this point? So not only the theoretical aspect or not only the academic aspect of the administration, okay, he also finds out that what will be the institutional basis of separation. Institutional basis means how we can separate the legislature, the executive as a system from the administration as a system. What aspects come within the field of politics or the executive and legislature? What aspects of the government come under the administration? Okay. Are you getting? Let us assume. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say now a father makes a two-story building, assuming that he has two sons, and someday, okay, they might go for a separation. Now, based on his assumptions, he develops the house or builds that house. But there is no separation. Once he dies, what happens? Both the sons make it a reality. So Wilson was what? Like the father. The Goodnow is like the sons. Okay. So his assumption was that, okay, yes, there must be or there can be a science of administration, a knowledge, a body of knowledge of administration based on this principles. What Goodnow does, he brings his book, and through his book he technically or factually separates it, that okay, this will be the basis of separation, these functions under the administration, these functions under the politics. This will be the basis of power or functional division within the politics, this will be the basis of functional division within the administration, the power, this, everything. Okay, so he comes with a very famous statement. Politics is about the expression of the state will, and administration is about the execution of that will. So what it does till now, or till Wilson, even though Wilson, because he initially starts it, then retreats it and understands that okay, there cannot be a complete separation of politics and administration. Okay. So Goodnow, when he comes, he is totally, you can say, radical in his approach towards the dichotomy. Okay, Wilson can be considered more liberal towards the idea of dichotomy, whereas he is more radical. He is saying that no, there is a basis of separation and they must be separated. Okay. So his idea that politics is about the expression of the state will and administration is about the execution of that will. What it does? It functionally and institutionally separate the administration and politics. So when the Goodnow comes, we say that this is concrete politics administration dichotomy, whereas so Wilson was more concerned with the analytic politics administration dichotomy, whereas Goodnow more about concrete politics administration dichotomy. Why we are saying concrete and analytic? Because his was more at the level of vision. His was more at the level of prescription. He is giving the exact principles to be followed or the basis on which we can separate the politics from the administration. So there are principles. Obviously political system is elected, administration is selected. Let's say this is recruitment is one of the basis, appointment is one of the basis, removal is another basis, role, constitutional protection, okay, constitutional status, that can be another basis of separation. The source of deriving the power or authority, that can be the basis. The constitution directly may empower the politician, the executive, but it may not directly empower the administration. So the constitution may be the source of the authority of the executives, whereas the statute or a law would be the authority or would be source of authority of the administrators. Okay, so likewise he is classifying it. So what was a vision of the Wilson became actually the reality of Goodnow. Are you understanding? So if you get a question, we'll discuss it further. Okay. But if you get a question that Wilson was more concerned with the idealisms of dichotomy, whereas the Goodnow was more concerned with the realisms of dichotomy. तो समझ में आएगा क्यों? तो बहुत ज्ञानवान हो गया, इतनी जल्दी इतना समझ में आने लग गया. Okay. So obviously, okay, the dichotomy was, or it became a reality as far as the discipline of public administration is concerned. But dichotomy was not reality as far as the functioning of the government is concerned. Why? We had discussed even the Pendleton Act came 1883. The spoil system was not over. So till the time the spoil system was not over, the administration was not totally merit based. What will happen? The highest post in the administration were being filled by the politicians or the political considerations. So they were basically under the control of the political masters. So the higher bureaucracy within the, or higher administration in the American bureaucracy was also filled by the political, or they were political appointments. So in reality the dichotomy was not visible, but academically the dichotomy was accepted. So as dichotomy was accepted, the study of administration revolved around the policy implementation. Now try to understand. When somebody will implement the policy, will he study the policy? Or will he study how to make a policy? No. So the larger values or larger questions of values were neglected by the public administration. Search for technique. So many theorists came right from Taylor to Fayol to Gulick, Urwick, Weber, Mooney, Rayleigh, many people, Fifner, Presthus, Negro, okay, Demock, various people who came to the study or contributed to the study of public administration. Okay, all of them were obsessed with this how. Technique. Nobody concerned with what. Okay. Now if you simplify it, understand that nobody was concerned with what politician is doing, what politician is making. All the public administration theorists were concerned with how the administrator can implement it properly. Okay. They had no concern with the whether the policy is wrong or right. Okay. Only the implementation is good or bad, it is the best or the average or can be improved to the best or is super best or whatever. Now that became the concern of the study of administration. And Goodenough was the basis of that. It was not the Wilson.
Public administration as a discipline, academic discipline evolves during Goodenough, not Wilson.
Yeah, obviously. Not evolves, but yes, it initiated. Okay. So Goodenough concretizes the idea. Okay. Later, in 1914, a report of the American Political Science Association. In 1914, the American Political Science Association submitted a report. Okay, in that report, they cited or they identified the public administration as a sub-discipline. PubAd as a sub-discipline of political science. So you see, obviously independent growth was not there, okay, but it was or it came to be recognized as a sub-discipline itself. Being recognized as sub-discipline is a very important part or is a very important milestone in the evolution of public administration as a discipline. Earlier, it was only considered as an adjunct to the political system, not even studied as part of political science. Only a reference was made to the administration, that is the implementation, because ultimately it was considered that once the political system has the control, then what is the utility? When you study the boss, what is the utility of studying the employee? So if you want to understand the organization, study what the boss does. So it was very logical that nobody tried to study the administration. They said, okay, it is a dependent system. Let us understand how the politics works, how the laws are made, how the policies are made, who makes the policy, how they contribute it, okay, who are the actors, okay, let us study them, and it is okay, fine. Whatever they will decide, it will be implemented. Are you understanding this? So, this report can also be considered as a very important landmark. Then 1926, the first textbook by L.D. White. So first textbook in America, and that can be considered as first textbook of PubAd. So the first textbook, Introduction to the Study of Public Administration, 1926, L.D. White. So one of the first textbook, Introduction to the Study of Public Administration, L.D. White. Now this book also created, or it developed or provided the basis for the evolution of PubAd as a discipline. Okay, it identified that what will be the content of the study of public administration. Okay, the concept of loci and foci, okay, like locus and focus, or loci and foci means that if I am talking about the Bollywood, will I study Ram Rahim? If I am talking about religion, then also I am not studying Ram Rahim. That means what? If I am talking about something, that I will specify the domain of study. Okay, domain will include both the things, academic also and physical, that is institution. Okay, so analytic institution and or analytic structure and physical structure, both I'll study, no? So what is the physical structure? What is the analytic structure? What is the content of study and what to study? Or who to study, means what are the institutions, organizations which I should study. So when the L.D. White's book comes, okay, it identifies, okay, what to study and where to study. So if I am studying public administration, will I study the legislature? No. Will I study executive, the council of ministers, the prime minister, the cabinet, will I study? No. Then what should I study? Okay, then he said, no, we must study what? Whatever is left after this. What is left? The administration. From where the personnel management or the people who are recruited through an examination, from where those people start within the government hierarchy, from there we have to study. So they said, okay, what is administration? The administration is that domain or that part of the government, okay, which comprises of the recruited officials based on certain examination. So instead of studying the laymen, that is the politician and the legislatures, we have to study the experts or people who are trained enough. Who are those? The administrators. So wherever they are, or whichever institutions or organizations they occupy, that should also be studied. So whether you call it bureaucracy, or you call it civil services system, or you call it PWD, health, what. So it said, L.D. White comes with this idea that, okay, we must study what? The scope of the subject should be this, and where should we study? We should study somewhere. Now, just evaluate his statement. He is also telling us what is to be studied and where is to be studied. So study the policy formulation in politics and study the implementation in administration. So the system which implements will be studied and not the one which formulates. What is the content of implementation, that will be studied, and not what is the content of the policy. Okay, so this likewise they divided it. Okay. And L.D. White reinforced the idea of the Wilson, okay, by saying that, okay, there are certain scientific principles of public administration and these are worth discovering. So he's saying that yes, administration can be made as a science, okay, and the pursuit of this science, or it is worth pursuing because there are principles, and once these principles are discovered, what will happen? We can get an ideal structure of administration which can lead to efficiency, or you can assume that way what they perceive, that all the ills of the society, all the ills of the policy, okay, can be eliminated once we know that science of administration. So how to administer, how to implement, how to serve the public interest once we know this. So according to them what? All the problems of the society will be solved. That is correct. But once we know how to control the contractor so that he makes the best road, then we'll get the best road. Then what is the problem? No problem left in the society. So they are saying it is the politician, the policy, the law will never be based on the vested interest, and even if it is based on vested interest, at least it will serve the majority. Why? Because it will be developed by the party in power. Any party which occupies power will have at least the mandate of the people. So inherent in their assumption is what? That the politics or the political system, howsoever be influenced by various types of values which are not desirable, the decisions of the government are what they reflect the majority of the or will of the people. So that will is reflected in decision, but that will is not reflected in implementation. So L.D. White develops certain principles on which the study of public administration emerges. Okay, and this phase from 1900 to 1926, okay, till this book comes, is known as concrete politics administration dichotomy phase. Okay, we'll study Nicholas Henry's paradigms once we complete this part. So in that, this entire phase is known as concrete politics administration dichotomy. Okay. Many contributors contributed to this phase. Okay, ultimately they recognize public administration as a discipline. So many other developments took place here. Political, administrative reforms, curriculum changes, okay, introduction of management as a subject, okay, certain aspects of management as a subject in the university. Okay, likewise, okay, it was also the phase of the industrial development, kind of, it was the, what you can say, the phase of almost the maturity of the industrial revolution. Okay. So other principles also developed, various other theorists contributed to study or understanding of industrialization. Okay. Now industrialization was not a small force. Okay, it was changing the society, economics, politics, everything. So to deal with the industrialization, you require to have a much more adaptive administration than what it was earlier. Let's say in 1880s or 1850s, okay, the European industrialization had almost completed. Complete together. Not started, but you can say from mercantilism to capitalism. Okay, that transition was taking place. But let us say European industrialization came earlier than the American industrialization. Is it true or not? Okay. Don't go by the Modi Bhakts. So they will say industrialization came first in India only. Okay. So likewise we should not evaluate. Okay. It is obvious that the industrial revolution will come where the mechanization started. Okay. So you can say that once the industrialization came to US, industrialization itself became a big or dominant force. So it was changing. So to tackle this industrialization, you required what? A more improved administration. Okay. That is what the Wilson's assumptions were also there in the idea of science of administration. If you are talking about an industrialized society, what are you indicating at? A society which is much more improved than the traditional society. What is a traditional society? Which is influenced by the conservative values. What is an industrial society? Which is influenced by modern values of rationality, cost, time, productivity, efficiency, and so many things. So if the society is making a transition, okay, then you require some knowledge also to understand it, and at the same time you require a system to control or at least manage it. If you cannot restrict the industrialization, at least you have to manage it so that the negatives do not, or consequences which you do not want must not happen. So you see, the entire understanding or the study of public administration revolves around these things. One was the existent corruption or the failure of the political system to deliver the services. The second was the industrial revolution. Can you link the industrial revolution with the growing scienticism, the growing scientific temperament, the growing positivism in the social sciences, also contributed by industrial development. So it required to study the society in a particular manner. Whatever transitions were going on, let us say after the industrial revolution, the nature of relationship within the society changed. Okay. In a primitive or traditional society or in a religion dominated society, the nature of social relations were different. So the consequences will be different. In the primitive society or traditional society, consequence in the industrial society will be different. So how will administration tackle it unless it reforms itself? Okay. Once the ICT comes, the nature of crime changes. Prior to the ICT, the nature of crime was. So we have to have an IT Act. That is why we have an IT Act 2000 or whatever, the amendments we have done, 2014 May. Okay. So logically, okay, how the administration will evolve. Okay. That drive is also coming somewhere from the evolution of the society. So two major developments were there. One was the industrial revolution. Okay. That was the dominant. Another was the increase or introduction of the merit-based civil services system. That also transformed the administration. Industrial revolution also transformed the administration. So if you see at the logical level, okay, at the factual level, at the ground level, if you evaluate all this growth and evolution of public administration and discipline is influenced by the industrial development, where the implementation obviously becomes more important. Cost, time, productivity, the vocabulary of the study of administration is deriving its, you can say, the basic theme from the industrial revolution. Science, efficiency, productivity, what? It is coming from the industrial revolution. Most of the theorists who contributed to the study of administration, all coming from the industrial revolution. Taylor, Fayol, all from the industrial revolution. So why industrial revolution? It was an economic influence. Why it was considered so important, most dominant? Because it was not bringing only economic changes, it was bringing socio-cultural changes also. Okay, so society was somewhere here, and after industrial revolution, either it went here or here. Okay, so the basis of the society, the basis of the formation of the society, the structure of the society, everything changed. So it would have been a shock for the administration if, or the government itself, if they had not managed this change. Okay. And there were a number of experiences, Great Depression and so on, okay, world wars, okay, number of other factors which influenced the study of administration. Okay, so you cannot say that it was purely an individual act of Wilson or his contribution to the study or the domain of the public administration, developing the content of PUBED. It was not the Wilson or only the Goodenough or only the LD White, but there were so many circumstantial influences which created the need for public administration. अभी इतना आया, ठीक है, आया तो फिर जाओ. कुछ पूछना है? हाँ, ब्यूरोक्रेसी, लोसाई, इंस्टीट्यूशन, ठीक है, फंक्शन. Let us say हमने बोला रेगुलेशन, रेवेन्यू, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर. सो व्हाट विल स्टडी द कंटेंट? लॉ एंड ऑर्डर कंटेंट हो जाएगा, रेवेन्यू कंटेंट हो जाएगा, वेलफेयर कंटेंट हो जाएगा. कहाँ हो रहा है ये? एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. सो द मोमेंट आई से इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, वेयर इट इज टेकिंग प्लेस? इन द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. इम्प्लीमेंटेशन इज नॉट टेकिंग प्लेस इन द पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम. सो व्हाट इज द लोकस? लोकस हियर मींस इंस्टीट्यूशन. कल परसों क्लियर होगा अभी, ठीक है, व्हेन वी स्टडी निकोलस हेनरी, ठीक है. सो लोकस मतलब तुम, फोकस मतलब तुम क्या करते हो, ठीक है, ये फर्क है. सो द लॉजिक इज द लोकस ऑफ ह्यूमन हार्ट, और हार्ट इज ह्यूमन बॉडी. इज इट करेक्ट? एनिमल्स ऑल्सो हैव हार्ट और नॉट? सो लोकस ऑफ द हार्ट इज ह्यूमन बॉडी. कहां पे लोकेट होगा, कहां होगा ये हार्ट? भाई ह्यूमन में ही होगा कहीं ना कहीं, रोबोट में नहीं हो सकता ना, ठीक है. बट ये स्टेटमेंट सही है बिकॉज हार्ट जो है एनिमल्स में भी होगा. So if I say the locus of the heart is living beings, okay, so I am defining what? The institution, the organization or the physical entity where it will be. वो locus है. Focus, academic. Right? Any other doubt? You have asked me here. Doubt है? कोई डाउट नहीं है, देख के नहीं लग रहा है ऐसे तुम लोग को. इनके you have doubt from the earlier class? Any book you are reading? In case, अच्छा. It's okay then. If you don't have doubt, fine. My work is done. Okay, see, from 28th there